Is that a worry for the Congress if it doesn't get its act together, that the Congress may actually die?
Narendra Modi, for example, came in 2014. I don't think he won it purely because he was Modi. I think there was a big anti-Congress, anti-UPA vote there. But thereafter, he's consolidated. On the economy, let me just tell you this, that India would be the third largest economy even if Akshay Kumar was the Prime Minister of India. No big deal. Okay? Arvind Kejriwal tells you what is the way politics needs to be played. When he speaks, you can't actually take your eyes off him. He beats Narendra Modi, in my opinion, on rhetoric and speech making and impact.
But not on electoral results.
And he doesn't use a teleprompter.
What do you think, and I know your book talks about this, is Rahul Gandhi's biggest mistake so far?
Personally, I think he's been very cool and chilled about people leaving the party, and I think I'm very upset about that. Kamal Nath, I still feel he's got a history with the Congress. He loves the Gandhi family. And frankly, if I can say this is quite a, I don't know whether you'll be upset with me for that, but he really believes that Priyanka Gandhi should have been the answer.
Not Rahul.
Not Rahul. I got to admit that if Mr. Modi is successful today, the full credit for that needs to go to the Indian National Congress Party.
Sanjay, there's this fascinating sort of allegorical tale in your new book, which compares the state of the Congress party to the once much beloved BlackBerry. And
the BBM.
The BBM, the BlackBerry messenger that Barack Obama and so many other ordinary mortals could not live without. Let's start there. Let's start with the parallels that you saw between the BBM, the BlackBerry, the now defunct BlackBerry, and the Congress party.
Disappointing, I would say. Frankly, I remember people in the Congress being so cocky and complacent. It's
when was this?
They are two diametrically opposite terms, but they actually intermingle. And this was in the pre-2014 days. A lot of people within the Congress actually telling me that we are a natural party of governance. The BJP will always be an aggressive challenger, nibbling away at the periphery, but is unlikely to kind of dislodge us despite that horrific onslaught of negative propaganda created by Arvind Kejriwal and Anna Hazare. And I thought that was worrying. And I must share with you one incident that I had with somebody who was very close to Rahul Gandhi. He actually told me in 2013 that the Congress party should lose. I was astonished. I said, why are you saying that? And his whole hypothesis was that, we have actually become weaker because there are many people in the party who are actually there not for ideological commitment, because they're looking at self-aggrandizement. And, if we lose, then the party will purge itself of those, if I remember his words clearly, the hyenas who are actually feeding off the party. I asked him only one question. If you want to purge the party of such very unwanted characters, do it when you're in power. Why do you have to be out of it, right? Because then you have the wherewithal to call the shots. I had no answer. But later on, when I heard a lot of people within the party who were close again to the more powerful people in the party, I was actually not astonished. Because when you have this death wish, that the only way you can actually purge or transform is by actually kind of apne pav par aap khud hi kulhari maroge, then I think you are committing haragiri.
In fact, your book quotes Adam Granton, I think it is, to talk about the phenomena of overconfidence. I think you call it the overconfidence arc and so on.
Right.
When you talk about the parallels between the BlackBerry and the Congress, and the BlackBerry was overtaken by the smarter phone, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't exist today.
Yeah.
Is that a worry for the Congress if it doesn't get its act together, that the Congress may actually die?
I'm actually deeply concerned that's why the title of the book, India in Free Fall. Because I think if the Congress collapses, so does the great concept that we call as the idea of India.
Why? It's not the same thing.
Well,
one political party cannot be equated to the entire country.
I agree. But if you look at the Congress's ideology per se, I know the practice and the principles have very often deviated, which is why the party has struggled. But it truly stands for a secular, liberal, democratic culture. its articulation has been awful. But coming back to your BlackBerry question, BlackBerry at one point deemed itself to be the inevitable choice for, the corporate and even for the young. It had a campaign for the young. And because of the fact that it eventually allowed its hubris to get the better of it, it completely collapses, vanished, in fact, very, very quickly. I am concerned about the Congress for one big reason. When you're a challenger party, Barkha, you got to be hungry. You got to have this insatiable appetite to reclaim what you actually created and developed for the country. It's got to be driven by passion, by a great brio within. Coming down to 44 seats in 2014 was like, I can't tell you how horrible that day was when I was at the AICC headquarters and the results were coming in. 2019, you don't do better. And can you imagine 10 years later, 10 long years, I have lost a bit of hair since then, and grade as well. 10 years later, any party would be a front runner right now in a conventional political dynamic of any democracy. You have to be the front runner. Take an example of Donald Trump. I mean, the man facing the most outrageous assault on his presidency, on his character. He is leading against Biden in this election. So that's a comeback story. The Congress, remarkably enough, is not able to kind of take the position of an opposition that is waiting to come back in government.
So your book, India in Free Fall, talks about 3 myths that you think plague the Congress. And the first myth, and I'll let you take us through the other 2. The first myth is that the Congress is too big to fail. Basically, you say this is a myth.
Yeah.
The Congress is no longer too big to fail.
Yeah, no.
And the second big myth was the Congress looking at the BJP as a seasonal flavor, a transitory seasonal flavor. So many people saw what one of the Congress leaders called a black swan event. They saw 2014 as a black swan event, an event of rare occurrence that would not repeat. There's all likelihood that it's all set to repeat a third time.
I know, it's a worry. I'll tell you why I believe that the Congress party made a fatal error in believing that just because we are not in the center, we will be powerful in the states. You go back to history, the Congress has a traditional vote bank of around, it bottoms at around 20%. But if you look at the history of the biggest political parties in France, and I mentioned that, they have vanished. Macron came from nowhere and became a new political force, and he was barely into politics for a long time. So I do believe that politics is being disrupted. Narendra Modi, for example, came in 2014. I don't think he won it purely because he was Modi. I think there was a big anti-Congress, anti-UPA vote there. But thereafter, he's consolidated. And which goes back, Barkha, to the question that, to believe that anybody in politics is going to cede you space or is going to allow the old, traditional psephologist argument of an anti-incumbency, it doesn't hold water anymore. You live in an age and time of social media, television, and all the dynamics. People who, even when they struggle, they find a way to get their message out, right? We live in the age of fake news and post-truth and alternative facts. And there are people who are vulnerable to the entire WhatsApp propaganda. So you got to live within the parameters of what you have to contest with. I find the Congress's argument, for example, that, the media is hostile to you. I agree. The big media has been pretty much jaundiced.
But you don't pick on reporters.
But you don't pick on reporters
and publicly humiliate them.
Exactly, right? Now, the other parties, the institutions have crumbled. Again, I agree. And these are worrisome developments. But having said that, you have to win despite these headwinds. Otherwise, you never will.
Okay, so there's a lot to ask there, including institutions that have been compromised in Congress years. But before we get to those larger philosophical conversations, let's go back to the book and the 3 myths. Take us through these myths. What are the myths that have caused the Congress to score self-goals?
One of the myths has been, I think a lot of people within the Congress relied on the charisma of the Gandhi family. And I can understand that from their perspective. I can empathize with that because they won elections where all you needed was one of the members of the Gandhi family to come and campaign in your constituency and your job was done. So I think a lot of people, when they are today loyalists of the party or who haven't questioned or advised Rahul or Priyanka or Mrs. Gandhi dispassionately, is because they feel awkward. They feel that everything I have achieved in my political career is entirely because of the Gandhis. Simple. It's a simple equation.
But that's what the Prime Minister calls Parivarvad.
And that's exactly what has hurt the Congress.
The Parivarvad?
No, the fact that within the Congress, they believe that if I were to tell the Gandhis that this is not right.
Nobody speaks the truth to the Gandhis.
Nobody speaks the truth. Everyone is so uncomfortable. People are like awkward about, calling
a spade a spade.
Calling a spade a spade. What happens to the leaders is, and I can tell you, I see that happening. They get cocooned from the rest of the world, and they rely on people, and everyone has a right to have, we call it as coterie, but they have a right to have people they trust, their own think tank. The problem is that these guys are not outspoken. And I believe in to be a good leader, you got to listen to the bad news first. And I think when leaders begin to live in an ivory tower and everyone who's around you is trying to flatter you because their own career gets interlinked with yours, right? So a lot of people, they don't want change in the leadership, because if there's a change in leadership, then they become actually much weaker. So there is a great degree of personal, selfish, actually a pretty parochial approach when you handle leadership at the Congress.
How many years has it been now that you have remained a suspended congressman?
I think I'm in the Guinness Book of World Records.
How many years?
4 years.
4?
4 years, yeah. September 2020.
Do you think you have been punished for doing exactly what you said enough Congress leaders don't do? Speak the truth.
Barkha, actually, if anybody reads the article of mine that I wrote in 2020 on March 3rd, which happened to be, by the way, my birthday. It was a coincidence that the Times published it on the day. It is actually an article that tells the Congress to, hey, this is a time for a call for action. I was trying to galvanize and invigorate people to say, listen, wake up. Because I felt Narendra Modi and the BJP were getting away and having a walk in the park because there was no real contest. And frankly speaking, I will tell you right now, if the Congress was in government today, and you had this electoral bonds issue, the Chandigarh mayor issue, the destruction of institutions, frankly, a flat economy, unemployment, the works, the BJP would have reduced the Congress in 2024 to less than 100 seats. And here we are talking about Mr. Modi getting probably a return for the third term. Let's see how that plays out. But the simple answer, Barkha, is this, that when the Congress had to really take the bold call and say, listen, if Jha has been critical, let's have a chat about it. Why did I write it? Because after a period, Rahul just stopped communicating. And for somebody like me who was used to chatting with him for a long time from 2004 onwards, I was taken aback as to why was he suddenly going into hibernation. Didn't make sense. He was the Congress president. And you lose an election. It's all right. 2019, you lost an election. It's not the end of the world. 10 years in opposition, take it in your chin and move on. But this entire drama about who's going to be the next president, Mrs. Gandhi came back. I asked myself just one question. The clock is already ticking. 24 will be around the corner very soon. And you are wasting every particular day which should count instead. You are blowing it up in an internecine crap that we should not even waste our time on. And look at it, 4 years later, you and I are doing a story on your popular platform, and the Congress is still battling the same headwinds and looking downwards.
And yet you remain a Congress supporter.
Can I be honest? I grew up with my dad he was a professor. And so we had books in the house all the time. And although I believe he was an in-closet supporter of Mr. Vajpayee and the RSS, but
I know a lot of Congress supporters who voted Vajpayee.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my father was in love with Atal Vajpayee. But the books he gave me were, Nehruji's The Discovery of India, My Experiments with Truth by Mahatma Gandhi. So I got greatly influenced by it. I think a lot of us who are born in the 60s, actually, when you look back, we are born not too late from the independence. Come to think of it. So, you feel like a cool dude when you're young, but now when you look back, we are actually not too far away, 14 years or 15 years after Midnight's Children. So I think we're greatly influenced by a very liberal spirit. And, I come from a very traditional, Brahmin household of Bihar. And yet in my home, and my father, and we were all growing up, we had people from all communities. In fact, one of the people I write about in the book, who actually spent time growing me up, was a gentleman called Nurul Hassan.
That's
Muslim,
right.
a Muslim. And because we were 4 kids born barely a few years apart from each other, eventually somebody else looked after you because the mother had no time. And that's the way we grew up. So I remain at core somebody who believes that the great idea of India is not just some abstract, westernized, elite concept, which is written by Sunil Khilnani that nobody in India knows about, but he's the one who's authored it. And I do believe it mirrors the Indian constitution. So I feel very strongly about the fact that the Congress hasn't owned up to the very people who created this great party.
However, it could be argued, and I certainly would argue parts of it, that on the Congress watch, this liberalism has been corroded. There were the emergency years of Indira. There have been dismissal of state governments on Congress watch, which are totally counterintuitive to democratic principles. The reason I'm bringing this up is every time a party has a lot of power, and has unchallenged access to the power, there will be corrosions of principles will be bent where they can be bent. But we'll come to that later. Let's come back to the book. So there's you get suspended 4 years and counting. You remain a congressman because you believe in the idea of the Congress is encapsulated by the freedom movement. The Congress you see today may not be that. Have you never thought, as Yogendra Yadav once said, the Congress has to die before an opposition can emerge?
Well, Barkha, come to think of it, the Congress has actually gone through that process.
Yeah.
If you ask me, it's a virtual demise for a party when you have failed to make any impact with the electorate back-to-back elections. You're not able to argue the case of nationalism. To me, there were 2 aspects that were intriguing. This is a party that fought for India's freedom struggle along with the rest of the country, and brilliantly at that. In fact, the British Empire came to an end largely because of what the Gandhiji and everyone else did. And today you have allowed BJP's extremely exaggerated, rhetorical, hyper-nationalism to dominate the narrative. Why? When the Congress correctly questions what was the role of the RSS or the Hindu Mahasabha and others in the freedom struggle, even that is a disputable topic. The second point is on the whole issue of secularism. I believe that, you can't be an apologist for being a secular person. L.K. Advani called it pseudo-secular. He called the Congress pseudo-secular. Why did the Congress push back? Now, if you look at it, and I have always believed that the Congress hasn't argued its case well, truly, if you had practiced minority appeasement, then the findings of the Sachar committee would not tell you how disproportionately very, shall we say, substandard or subpar is the existing of the...
But there was Shah Banu.
There was Shah Banu. I think Shah Banu was a clear case of political opportunism that boomerang.
There was the A.K. Antony report.
Yeah.
Mr. Antony's son is today a BJP candidate in 2024. But A.K. Antony, who has no real, unlike Kamal Nath, cannot be accused of playing a game within a game and so on, as some congressmen have accused Kamal Nath of doing. He said the perception of the Congress is that we are anti-Hindu. That was his report.
And I'll tell you, can you imagine the Congress party wins 10 of the 17 general elections. The Congress party has governed India for 54 of the 70 odd years that we have been independent.
Yeah.
No one in the party has argued the case that can any party win so many elections and add to that the number of state elections without the support from the entire country, including the majority population of Hindus, right? So I think this is what I call as an extremely absurd and atrocious approach to an issue that is dominating the narrative because the Prime Minister is able to create it. Now, here is the point. Now, if I remember telling people in the Congress, you should be going out there and saying that, listen, you accuse me of minority appeasement, that's 14% of the vote.
Yeah.
Which political party can hinge its entire future on 14% of the votes when the majority population is 80%? It's a mathematical absurdity. But then, people have to engage in this conversation. You can't delegate that to a spokesperson or somebody. The leader has to do it. Like, for example, Rahul Gandhi did talk about, the distinction between Hindutva and Hinduism. Hindutva is a 1923 concept of Vinayak Damodar Savarkar. Hinduism is centuries old. But you have to get into that conversation. You have to debate it. the Congress actually has run away from it. And that, I think, has caused it the problems. Because, Barkha, in my opinion, jobs is a serious issue. Okay. So is food inflation. So is the farmer crisis. So is the fact that the economy technically has been rather flat and anemic.
India is going to be the third largest economy in a few years.
Well, Barkha,
in the world.
Barkha, but let me tell you this, that, the third largest economy argument is frankly...
and the third Q3 GDP figures are over 8%.
Well, I can tell you that as a student of economics, I find some of the massaging of the numbers as very, very questionable. But on the economy, let me just tell you this, that India would be the third largest economy even if Akshay Kumar was the Prime Minister of India. No big deal. Okay. And the truth is, and this is what we fail to understand, that India needs a per capita income in the Human Development Index, less number of malnourished and stunted children.
You're saying it's just the size of the Indian market, no credit to the government. But is there anything you'd give credit to the government?
I give full credit to this government for branding. I'll give you an example.
You've been a brand guy.
I've been a brand guy, and I'll tell you, under the UPA, you called it the National Manufacturing Policy. Sounds like some bureaucrat having a great day in the office. The Mr. Modi made it Make in India. Now the share of manufacturing has gone down in India's GDP, but who cares, right? It just sounds very sexy sloganeering. You take an example of, take another one, the jam trinity. Yeah. These are words that play to the investment banker, to the analyst, to the pink papers. You got to know how to package it well, right? And I think these are the basics that the Congress really missed out on. And I think a large reason for that is, I think, the Congress leadership, and all three of them, I've written that in my previous book. When you are in politics, Barkha, you got to communicate. I'm here with you, and by the way, I need to tell you, on a Women's Day, talking to probably one of the best, if not the best TV anchor in the space. I genuinely mean that. I think it's special. But you need to communicate that. I'm doing it. Hey, why can't Rahul come here and do that with you? That's what politics is about. You need to be out there talking about these issues. I think Narendra Modi goes unchallenged on everything. There is no contest because the leader has to do it. I think it's something that the Congress needs to recognize. You can't delegate it to the chief spokesperson. You can't delegate it to some powerful leader. You got to do it yourself. And if I was the Congress president or a leader, I would be giving interviews left, right, and center. And I would be tweeting on every potential subject. And I would go to schools. I would do town halls. I would go to address farmers' rallies. I would do everything because that's how you set the narrative.
Let's start on Hinduism versus Hindutva. Kamal Nath tried visible Hinduism in Madhya Pradesh and it bombed. Why do you think?
I think the problem with, trying to embrace Hinduism as just an electoral asset to be used during a season of voting is getting onto a kamikaze mission, really. Because the truth is that the Congress needs to tell the people of India that we are a secular country. We are all in this together. Congress needs to say this, that we are pro-Hindu, we are pro-Muslim, we are pro-Sikh, we are pro-Buddhist.
So the person who tried to do that in national politics is Arvind Kejriwal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Do you think he's had a better run?
I was disappointed that Arvind Kejriwal did not speak anything at all on Bilkis Banu's issue, which I thought was like gut-wrenching. But Arvind Kejriwal tells you what is the way politics needs to be played. When he speaks, you can't actually take your eyes off him. He beats Narendra Modi, in my opinion, on rhetoric and speech making and impact.
But not on electoral results.
And he doesn't use the teleprompter. No, but I do feel that Arvind Kejriwal senses the mood of the people brilliantly. And you can't, you can't call him a starter party anymore. He's done reasonably well. But more importantly, when you hear him in the assembly and other places where he speaks, he is giving out a message that I'm here to stay. I'm not going to give in. You have put some of my best leaders in the jail. Yeah. But, I'm a different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
That's what people actually want to see. I think Rahul, in all fairness, after the Bharat Jodo Yatra and the current Bharat Jodo Nyaya Yatra, which unfortunately has been dogged by too many other political distractions, belatedly took the right step. Now it's for him to tell that this is not the end. This still remains the beginning of the resurrection of the Congress and also the rebirth of Rahul Gandhi.
One of the lines in your book is Rahul Gandhi is the only opposition leader who makes the BJP squirm.
He does. And I'll tell you.
Why do you say that he makes the BJP squirm?
I felt, for example, being a banker, I read the entire Hindenburg report on Gautam Adani's group. And I can tell you that whatever, I want to see what plays out. But there are serious fault lines in the entire functioning of the group. Rahul, I thought, was correct in going in parliament and outside and questioning it. Where I get disappointed by the Congress, where I think the Congress advises him, Rahul as a leader, part of the job of leadership is to know that you will have to take the bulk of the responsibility if things go wrong. And a leader needs to give credit to the others. Rahul needs to realize that when, for example, the Chaukidar Chor Hai, bombed, but I'll explain that. The Congress party in its 2000 manifesto, Barkha, had said that if we come back to government, we will criminally investigate the Rafale case, which meant that you were convinced that whatever happened, this required a forensic investigation. Now, think about how Congress's political communication is, how bad it is. Rahul made a statement during the campaign that the Supreme Court said Chaukidar Chor Hai, right? Yeah. Now, Supreme Court, then Meenakshi Lekhi goes to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court says apologize. The Supreme Court did not say that he did not have a right to question Modi and Rafale. The Congress did not defend it. The BJP spokespeople go to shows today and say that Rahul had to apologize for saying Chaukidar Chor Hai. Rahul had to apologize for saying Chaukidar Chor Hai because he made it appear to the Supreme Court said it.
But you're making a technical argument. Right?
Right.
The point is, whether or not Rahul had to apologize to the Supreme Court and these were the reasons A, B, C, personally attacking the Prime Minister has not worked for the Congress. But Rahul Gandhi has doubled down on that approach. He has used the word panauti when the Prime Minister goes to visit the cricket team in its dressing room after a match lost. A move that even critics of the Prime Minister should treat as normal. These are normal human things. Heads of state everywhere come, they cheer their team and they give them a hug if they lose. Aren't these just silly battles to pick?
I do believe that Mr. Modi has actually polarized India tremendously. One of the reasons why I've been very anti Mr. Modi's politics is because I think he has very brazenly and blatantly polarized the country. The result is a Congress which otherwise, if you look at the Congress under the time of Mr. Vajpayee as a Prime Minister, and there was a spirit of accommodation. I remember the first time when I met Mrs. Gandhi actually in 2004, before the campaign started, when the Congress was written off. When I spoke to her, and that was my first introduction to the Congress, we spent hours talking about it, and there was no hostility, there was no unpleasantness. She obviously wanted the Congress to come back, but the respect for Atal Bihari Vajpayee was there, it was visible, and I thought it was so nice to see that. I remember actually telling my better half that so nice to see that Indian politics does have a convivial spirit outside of the studios.
Do you have friends in the BJP?
I know a couple of people, but I think at the end of the day, what I like about people from politics from all sides, there's no real hostility. I think people do
get along actually off the cameras. They do get along.
I think it's pretty cool, very civil and polite.
So then, why pick on the Prime Minister personally? And let's come back to this communication, political communication. Rafale was the 2019 sort of central issue flagged by Mr. Gandhi. Adani has become this campaign's issue. The point is, I'm not saying that the opposition should not raise valid questions. The point is, people in general don't understand these cases because they're deeply technical debates, right? Yeah. Point one. Yeah. Point two, they also see Congress chief ministers welcoming Mr. Adani into their states. So Revanth Reddy, the flavor of the season, just having won Telangana, shares the stage with the Prime Minister, calls the Prime Minister his elder brother, but also welcomes the Adani empire into his fold, totally contradicting the messaging of Mr. Gandhi. And some would say Revanth Reddy's messaging is actually more effective. He's probably charming the Prime Minister.
No, and why not?
Why not?
If you ask me, I think it was a good thing that he spoke about the Prime Minister as he did. Like, I'm critical of Mr. Modi, but otherwise I admired his absolutely determined hunger for power. Sam Dam Dandbed, of course, is questionable, but I like the fact that he doesn't like to lose. Personally, I'm also like that. I hate to lose even a small friendly tennis match. So, but I want to come back to the point that you mentioned about Adani and Rafale. I do believe that these are very very serious challenges. The government will one day have to come clean. It ought to face a transparent investigation. The problem with the Congress, and I come back to that, Rahul ran the crusade, but Rahul did not get the entire Congress to become a stakeholder to the campaign. Now, being part of the corporate world, I'll tell you that politics can't be too different. In the corporate world, when you take a decision, your employees or your team or your leaders need to know it first. You can't announce in the market that I'm coming up with a product with your own company not knowing about it. Right? So whether it was Rafael or Adani, the Congress had to hold internal conversations, not just kind of a handout where people have to go on television screens and mouth it out. You need to have dialogue within. People should ask questions. You think, are we doing it right? What will be the consequence? These things need to be debated. For example, the Congress's decision not to go for the Pran Pratishtha. Why do you have a Congress working committee if they don't sit and debate it? These decisions are taken so abruptly in such an ad hoc manner. So the Congress has somewhere down the line allowed its political culture to become, I would say, the prerogative of a few people who are close to the Gandhis or maybe now to Mr. Kharge. But I do believe that that is where the Congress is making a mistake. And you know, like for example, I would tell the Congress, be more emotionally charming in your campaign. You can't use logic. You know, like for example, you know, there's a very famous saying that human beings are not creatures of logic. As you rightly mentioned, the creatures of emotions.
Absolutely.
Right? You see what Mr. Modi does, right? He says, repeat after me if you believe me. And the crowd just does that. That is, by the way, you'll find a trope which is used by a Steve Jobs or any what was being used by Steve Jobs. By the way, they call me the Steve Jobs of Ghatkopar or Borivali. And, you know, the truth is, it is used by corporate CEOs everywhere. Repeat after me, you know, go after me. You need to be gung-ho. That's where the Congress has been bland.
You spoke about how Rahul stopped communicating with you. And here you are, suspended congressman. You know, what do you think? And I know your book talks about this. Is Rahul Gandhi's biggest mistake so far?
Personally, I think he's been very cool and chilled about people leaving the party. And I think I'm very upset about that. You know,
you don't like that response?
I don't like that at all. I think, you know, for example, when somebody leaves your company or somebody leaves your community, you fight to retain that person. You know, companies, you know, they offer bonuses. They kind of find out.
But what if that response is seen as unethical?
I think it's wrong. You know, but you know,
and that happens in companies.
That happens in companies,
there are people who build their careers on the back of, you know, they use you almost as a resume printing, you know, vehicle.
They do, but the truth is you don't like to lose good people. Politics eventually is about the people you have, right? I remember Barkha, maybe I was telling you on your show when you were there with NDTV, that the difference between the Congress and the BJP is that the Congress has got no talent deficit. And just think about it. A Congress today with a Jyotiraditya, with an RPN Singh, with a Jitin Prasad, with a Milind, with Mr. Jakhar, with Captain, it is such a formidable force. And, you know, I remember telling this to some people in the Congress that Rahul's army of people includes a Shashi Tharoor, a Manish Tiwari, a P. Chidambaram, people whom I know and who I think are brilliant people. Sachin Pilot. And you are not using this talent here. There's no conversations happening. You know, I feel disappointed. I have written this book because I feel the Congress once upon a time had an intellectual heft. Today, our conversations sound very tactical, very soundbite friendly, you know, punch somebody here, you know, make a little meme out here. We are being driven more by the social media compulsions, but this is a party that should be talking the language that has, I think, a flavor of a Barack Obama speech.
So you think Rahul Gandhi's biggest mistake has been you didn't use the word, I'm using it, a kind of arrogance, jisko jana hai jao.
You know, exactly. I don't agree with Rahul at all when he says that, you know, people who are not ideologically committed will leave. For the simple reason that, unfortunately, India is a work in progress as a democracy. Ideological fidelity, perhaps I'm at the moment the only poster boy of that, because I will, and I'm saying so on your show.
The thing is, it's not that the opposition has ideological fidelity, right? You're in partnership with the Shiv Sena, which once upon a time was the poster child of Hindutva.
Fair enough, but you know, can I be a little maybe I'm being overconfident, but I hope that there are people who will also kind of take a little cue from me, that you can be in a party if you believe in the ideology, the philosophy of the party, even if you are not a beneficiary of a political whatever dispensation, because you believe that comebacks do happen. I hope, why am I? Somebody asked me the other day, you look like an oddball, a weird guy. You fight for the party like any passionate spokesperson does. They introduce you as a suspended guy. You don't even know whether you're coming back to the party. What's up? What's wrong? And I tell myself, actually, that should not be the case. Actually, it should be like this. You don't see a Republican joining a Democrat just because Trump lost, right? So anyway, we'll come to that. I do believe that, let's take the case of Milind. I'll mention Milind's case because Milind is a very dear friend and he'll watch this program for sure. Milind, I don't think, wanted to leave the Congress. Okay? Mr. Shinde, be nice to Milind. Milind did not want to leave the Congress. Milind wanted to be in the Congress. Now he's, 10 years out of power, you need to be relevant for the next 5. So you are asking the Congress, how do I do it? Do I fight Lok Sabha? Do I get a Rajya Sabha? Or do I become a critical office bearer? There are no clear answers. And if you lose a guy like Milind, whose father has been a titan in the Congress, the Gandhi family came for Mr. Murli Devra's funeral, etc. to Mumbai. Milind took Rahul for his first big international tour to universities, where I think Rahul's brand actually began to get currency. And you have no dialogue with him. Why? That to me is absolutely unacceptable. Totally. And even now I will tell you that I find Priyanka very sharp and she's got a great deal of emotional intelligence. Rahul is, I think, a little low in EQ. I think he just leaves it too much to, logic and, facts as they are. He means well, but, you need to be more warm and connected to your team.
But, we've been hearing now for years about Priyanka is naturally better at communication, naturally better at EQ, but she hasn't actually been tested politically. The one time that she worked on the UP campaign, it didn't do anything for the Congress party. It failed for her. The Punjab mess was seen to be a result of some of her interventions. You've spoken about Milind. Let's talk about Punjab. What happened in Punjab?
Punjab, I think, is a classic Harvard Business School case study on how to commit suicide in broad daylight and invite the public to watch the spectacle. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. And I think somewhere down the line, the lessons were not learned despite that, right? In Rajasthan. A lot of people say
what was the lesson to learn from Punjab?
I can tell you that Sachin is again a wonderful guy.
So what? Let's start with Punjab and then move to Rajasthan.
In Punjab, you destabilized a person who was outspoken. Captain was outspoken. He would not take orders from Delhi. And you have to respect a man because he's worked with your father and your grandmother. Now, I think one of the things that we grew up in, and since we talk of, sanskar and sanskriti, that, and I have been brought up like that, that no matter if it's a BJP person who's older, you respect the guy because he's older to you. It's a simple thing. You can be critical, but you can't be disrespectful. I thought it was so against the Congress grain that the captain comes to meet you in Delhi and you don't meet him. It's just unheard of. To me, it was bizarre. To me, it's...
Why do you think they did that?
I think there was some internal, kind of set of people. Once again,
Sidhu,
people who are like, no, there's a need for change and we need to be more dynamic. And is this person, playing footsie with the other side on some cases? But, these are tactical things. You've got to take the broader call. You're fighting an election. There is somebody who won. By the way, Captain won that election for the Congress at the prime of the Modi wave. Think about how Sachin won it for the Congress in Rajasthan. Peak time of the Modi wave. And then when
you mean 2014, not 19, just to be clear.
And end of day, you don't give Sachin an opportunity. And I remember when the election results came out this time, Congress still did around 80 odd seats. Clearly tells you that you made a promise to a Sachin that you'll become a chief minister halfway through the tenure, maybe even earlier. And then you dilly-dally on it. So the mistake that the Congress makes, and this has all gone to the advantage of BJP and Mr. Modi, you're not decisive. You rather take a decision and correct it if it's wrong, rather than just procrastinate and take no decision at all.
Do you think the Congress has been unfair to Sachin Pilot?
Absolutely. I think Sachin, in my opinion, is a brilliant guy because he works so hard. I believe that everyone in politics needs to play to their strength.
Yeah.
Some people are social media friendly, some people are television friendly. Sachin is the man who loves to be on the ground. And he called me once to address, some of the Congress workers in Rajasthan. The people just loved him there. Somebody came and told me, "Aapko shayad ye मालूम भी नहीं होगा कि राजस्थान में वो रात भर कहाँ से कहाँ वो चले जाते हैं लोगों से मिलने के लिए." That is the kind of, the rishta, the prem, and above all the prerna that he gives to his people that the leaders need to do. I think the Congress really lost the plot there. And even on the Kamal Nath issue, Rahul said during the campaign that MP is done and is a done deal. Chhattisgarh a done deal. Rajasthan looks tough.
Yeah.
Look what happened. You actually did best in Rajasthan even if you lost. Yeah. And you actually gave these two aways on a silver platter. So the message here is...
and why, according to you?
So I believe that,
You were not a fan of how Kamal Nath ran his campaign.
Kamal Nath happens to be somebody whom I know, but I need to say this, that I felt that when Rahul had to make a choice between Jyotiraditya and Mr. Kamal Nath, or between Sachin and Mr. Gehlot in 2018,
yes,
when the elections were held,
yes,
you'll remember there were very cryptic tweets that were put out by Rahul's team. I don't think Rahul himself, which was like, wait, and the rewards will come. I didn't actually like it. I actually didn't like it. I thought this is serious politics. There are people who have fought this election. Scindia and Kamal Nath are ambitious people. They both want to be a chief minister. Yeah. You can't be frivolous. You're the boss. Don't be frivolous. This is serious business. It's politics. This is politics.
I actually also don't understand wait your turn. Why?
Why?
Why should anyone wait
Why should anybody wait their turn?
Yeah,
I for example, feel... Sachin is mid-40s.
Yeah.
I would like a Congress to have a chief minister who is in late 20s. Yeah, make it early 30s. How does it make a difference? It should not. And that's the reason why I get a little concerned about how Congress is learning from its mistakes. Barkha...
Do you think Kamal Nath might join BJP after all that?
I met him.
I don't know if the BJP wants him though.
Well, if you ask me, I met him around some time ago in Delhi. And, I was astonished by his passion. This is after he was no longer a chief minister. And he and Digvijay were there. And I love both of them, grand old men, still sitting out there and thinking of how to come back.
Yeah.
I believe they were front runners until the campaign got goofed up. But there is that raw hunger in them because they're diehard politicians. I think somewhere down the line over the last 10 years, the Congress has just lost that energy. I believe that even somebody like me who's a lateral entrant into politics, maybe you don't have to use me for the conventional, that stuff of politics that we don't talk about publicly. But there are people who run those machines. They run, they kind of grease the wheels. They make sure that everything is running and you're up and about when you need to be. I think the Congress lost that. But in Kamal Nath, I still feel he's got a history with the Congress. He loves the Gandhi family. And frankly, if I can say this is quite a, I don't know if they will be upset with me for that, but he really believes that Priyanka Gandhi should have been the answer.
Not Rahul.
Not Rahul.
And do you believe that too?
I feel that, I've said it and I got into a little bit of trouble. That also added to my suspension. I felt that Congress needed a ticket of Sachin Pilot and Priyanka Gandhi both. Priyanka would have kept the loyalists and the family together.
So Priyanka becomes Congress president and Sachin becomes the prime ministerial candidate.
Sachin becomes the prime minister. The campaigner-in-chief one becomes this. And Rahul remains. Rahul has an asset, by the way. He truly is, he feels at home with the disempowered, the disenfranchised and the weak. And that, I think, is the real India in a great number of ways. So when I see Rahul doing the yatra and doing this amazing job, it takes a lot of, Barkha courage and character and conviction of what you're doing. What Rahul has done is incredible, extraordinary.
But he
doesn't leverage that politically.
One is that, and two, you're from the corporate world. There's the law of diminishing returns. You can't play the same hand and get the same results. The second yatra was mistimed. That was the time when he needed to be working on the India Alliance and so on. But there's a very interesting story in your book that I want to talk about. We're talking about the Congress vis-a-vis the BJP. But we haven't mentioned regional parties except for Aam Aadmi Party briefly. The very interesting account in your book that Pawan Verma, who was with the Trinamool Congress at the time, wants you to join the party. This is before the Trinamool Congress is venturing into Goa. It's trying to test the waters outside of Bengal. It clearly has national ambitions. And you write in your book that Mamata Banerjee clearly is eyeing a national role in the event of a hung assembly or a lower number situation for the BJP. And for that, she now needs to put her foot outside. Basically, the point that you're trying to make is that Prashant Kishore plus Mamata Banerjee were trying to dislodge the Congress as the pan-India opposition. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I do feel that, and why not? I mean, Prashant is a very, he's a guy who tests the waters. Very pragmatic, super intelligent in my opinion. And I think Trinamool saw the Congress decimating itself and said, why can't we become the original Congress? And Pawan, I think, bought into that story. And they believed that the Congress was withering away in some smaller states. And why not Goa become the experiment where the TMC does better than the Congress? And then the TMC goes pan-India and says, listen, we are the real Congress. And which is why you found a lot of people who were with the Congress like Shatrughan Sinha and Kirti Azad and others moved to the TMC. And I think at the end of the day, Barkha, the message there was very clear for the Congress that, you can't take for granted that you are going to be the grand leader of the opposition. And, others are just going to wait for you to kind of lead the campaign. I feel, for example, that although that did not work in the TMC, frankly, that entire ambition got nipped in the bud. Why did the Congress, as one of the principal partners of the India Alliance, the linchpin, waste 3 months between September to December doing nothing on seat distribution on the India Alliance?
Because they thought that they were going to do so well in the assembly elections that they would not need the India Alliance.
Exactly the problem. Exactly the problem. If the Congress should have told itself, my opponent is the BJP in 2024. What will you do with the other allied members, right? You get a few more seats, you will negotiate something better from your allied partners. Why are you looking within? You got to look out. You got to look at BJP. I would happily, in fact, I had written a whole document for the India Alliance and I said, you should waste no time on seat distribution. Follow a simple formula. The party which has done well in the Lok Sabha and the Assembly should have the veto on who will get what. If they say, supposing in Uttar Pradesh, Samajwadi Party says, I will fight 70 seats and I'll give the Congress 10, just take it without a protest. You will have the right to say the same in Rajasthan and other states. And let TMC decide on West Bengal. It's non-complicated. If you don't have trust, you can't really make it happen. I think the Congress trying to wait till December to get a few more seats from its own partners was such myopic thinking. And look what has happened. It's advantage to the BJP.
Going back, the Trinamool Congress experiment doesn't work in Goa. But if you see the Nitish exit, it's preceded by Mamata Banerjee proposing Mr. Kharge's name for Prime Minister. That doesn't work. Nitish gets angry. Maybe he would have gone back to the BJP anyway. We don't know. The regional parties seem to be not very convinced of this India Alliance project. That's the sense I get. So look at what's happening. You have Nitish Kumar who's gone back to the BJP. You have Naveen Patnaik who's going to go back to the BJP. You have Mamata Banerjee hopping mad with the Congress, saying this is not the time for the Bharat Jodo Yatra. You have the left in Kerala saying don't contest from Wayanad. So what is this India Alliance? That leaves you just with the truncated version of the Uddhav Thackeray Shiv Sena and yes, Akhilesh Yadav in UP. That matters.
And Tejasvi in
Bihar. Yes.
And of course Mr. Stalin in Tamil Nadu. But I think the larger story, you hit the nail on the head. I believe Nitish Kumar left the India Alliance not because he wanted to. I don't think there were any compulsions on him at all. The BJP welcomed him happily. They were pleasantly surprised because the Congress did not demonstrate the leadership as a party that was at the fulcrum of the India Alliance. See, we have to bite the bullet on it. I was frankly very disappointed when that happened. Because see, Nitish, what did he ask for? He said, let me become a convener. It is nothing. It is just a little bit of satiating his... he's not a kid on the block.
His stature, his stature.
And by the way, he curated it, right? The first summit was held in Patna. You have to be large-hearted, I believe, in anything in life. Definitely in politics. Sometimes you have to lose to win. He was not asking to become a prime ministerial candidate, right? He just said, make me the convener. It would have given him the whole stature of, becing heard and, becoming more of a voice. What was the big drama about the fact that we need to think about it? I would have taken 5 seconds to say,
Yeah.
go, just
Yeah,
go.
yeah,
Defeat
exactly,
the BJP.
exactly.
It's ridiculous. And then, I have said this to people in the Congress before, and, that's the reason why I'm suspended, and, I'm feeling weird because I like these guys, okay? If I was Rahul Gandhi, I would have not waited for meetings to happen in New Delhi. I would have taken a flight, gone to meet Mamta ji in Kolkata. Can you imagine? Yeah. That's the respect that you show to a veteran leader, right? Yeah, yeah. And would Mamta Didi not like it? She would love it. Yeah. She would love it. The larger party has to be more generous, magnanimous, open to the fact that, we are open to change. I think I was disappointed actually when Mr. Kamalnath said, Akhilesh Vakhilesh kya. You don't do that, yeah. You don't do that. I would not do that to even maybe you have a bad head. I would not do that to anybody of my opponent, even in the BJP. You can't be scornful. You can't be dismissive. Yeah. That's not political dialogue that the Congress should do.
There was a time when Prashant Kishore wanted to join the Congress.
Yeah. I wish he was there.
That didn't happen.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, people within the Congress were so insecure because Prashant, he can be disruptive.
Yeah.
And you needed somebody. You needed somebody in the Congress party who comes and tells you, hey guys, shape up. This is not working. This has got to be done differently. Some of you are not going to hold those positions. I'm going to change the communications team. And I'm going to have the eyes and ears of Mrs. Gandhi, Priyanka, Mr. Kharge, whoever. Why was the Congress reluctant to take him on? Here is a man who worked with Mr. Modi in 2014, who, by the way, makes a great deal of sense. You may disagree with him at times, but he's an asset. And by the way, he's got a very attractive public profile. And plus, he's not going to come to your party and just, indulge in some pleasantries to make you feel good. That's the kind of...
But why again blame the advisors? The final veto would have come at the top.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, too much of discomfort again. The Congress's problem is stuck in the status quo. In life, why does a turtle succeed? Because it puts its neck out. That's how you move ahead. You got to take those risks. You got to be bolder. I remember Rahul's comment in the early days when we lost that election to AAP, I remember. I will bring about changes that you have never seen.
Yeah.
That never happened. And I think somewhere down the line, my disappointment with Rahul, I really like him. I need to say that. I think he's working really hard. The Bharat Jodo Yatra is extraordinary. But politically, he's paid a cost. Because I was expecting him to make the Congress more flexible, more chilled out, more open for internal democracy, and actually become a vibrant, communications-friendly party. Rahul allowed the old culture to, in fact, kind of subsume him.
So it's even more status quo today than
so instead of becoming the change agent, he became part of the old structure.
So you talk a lot about... you don't have an optimism about India. A lot of Indians may not agree with you, right? In fact, if anything, surveys tend to show that while unemployment and inflation are flagged as top concerns, there's still a belief that Mr. Modi is the person who has to solve those problems. And to that extent, the Prime Minister has a certain degree of Teflon coating, where a lot of things that go wrong, people don't seem to blame him for it. One of the possible reasons is that they don't see an alternative. Now, one of the criticisms of the opposition has been, what's your message? Who's your face? If I had to ask you that in the end, what's your message? Who's your face? What's the answer to that question?
Well, I'll answer that. But, one of the advantages that Mr. Modi has, they say who sets the narrative wins the election.
Yeah.
And, Barkha, it's wonderful to see voices like yours and some others who are out there, who hold a very dispassionate conversation. But I think big media has actually helped Mr. Modi's case tremendously. Take an example. I don't think any prime minister or president in a democracy would have survived, forget being re-elected, would have survived the public outrage if there was violence in some part of the country where over hundreds died, ethnic conflict, thousands displaced, you never visited there for 9 months.
You mean Manipur?
Absolutely. I mean, look at the electoral bonds issue. I think it's a source of political corruption.
But the Congress has also received money from the bonds. The Trinamool has received money. The NCP has received money.
Fair
so,
enough.
as they say in Hindi, samam mein sab nange hai, right?
Maybe. But this government has got the largest sum of money. And if anybody...
Because it's the winning party or seen to be the winning party.
Fair enough.
So there's no moral principle that the others can claim. Except the CPM.
No, fair enough. But Barkha, there is a huge element of a potential quid pro quo deal, and these need to be investigated. Mr. Modi survives demonetization, which I think was an economic disaster. Pushed actually the amount of GDP you lost would hurt the poor the most. Mr. Modi survives Adani. Mr. Modi survives Rafale. Mr. Modi survives the death of institutions. Mr. Modi survives the great washing machine the BJP is. Clearly, he has the narrative in his favor.
I was just going to offer I don't know if it's an explanation, but a reasoning. I think that we, politicians, journalists, those who live in this navel-gazing universe where this is our life, we think these issues are very important, right? Yeah. Oh, is there a free press? Oh, is so-and-so institution really independent? But if you step out of this little bubble, this is not what's exercising people. People want to feel good about themselves, and they don't really connect to feeling good about themselves and their immediate livelihood to whether, India's TV channels are dignified or undignified, right? Yeah. So I think my counter would be that you have to recognize, you've been in marketing, right? You have to recognize that you either change the slogan or you change the product. You can't keep selling the same thing with the same message.
I agree.
Isn't that where you guys are stuck?
I agree. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
I recommended to the Gandhis and to people in the Congress, I think whoever was that time, part of the core team, that why aren't we agitating that where is the Lokpal? The Congress lost the 2014 elections.
On the Lokpal issue.
On the Lokpal.
Yeah.
I said the Congress should hit the street saying, where is the Lokpal? Because Mr. Modi's government was delaying it. Take the issue head on. I'll give you a second example. The 2G case was thrown out, right? Did the Congress hit the street saying the BJP lied? No. You know what answer I got?
Yeah.
Let's not talk about it. It was created a lot of bad news. If we say the BJP will go to town saying that anyway they're going to appeal. I mean, what a stupid technical answer to one where you could have actually created a narrative.
But don't you think the biggest weakness, messages comes later. From marketing, first you need, okay, what are you selling?
Mm-hmm.
So, or who are you selling?
Yeah.
Right? You have a juggernaut of a brand on the other side.
Yeah.
How can an opposition conglomerate, it's like saying I'll be a company without a CEO. Mm-hmm. I'll be a channel without an editor. You are being an opposition without a leader. I don't understand this.
Yeah. No, I'll tell you here. One of the things that Mr. Modi successfully did, again, repeated affirmation of that one information. Congress is a dynastic family. Okay.
And people believe it.
People believe that.
Even if all the dynasts of the Congress migrate, because the top person is not a dynast. Right? The overwhelming perception is that Congress ka sabse bada aadmi dynast hai, BJP ka sabse bada aadmi self-made.
Yeah. And I'll
everything else, some Karuna Karan's daughter, some Muralidhara's son. This is not, you can't make an argument on it because that's not how the voter sees it.
Yeah, I mean, think about it, Barkha, 45 of the MPs, Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha included, in the BJP, that's roughly around 12%, are people from the dynastic families in the BJP. But here is the point. I remember I got a call when Rahul Gandhi was on a trip abroad saying that he's being asked this question on the dynasty. What should he say? And you know what answer I suggested to him? He never did it. Again, I said, Rahul doesn't push the boundaries. I said he should go and say that my great-grandfather was Pandit Nehru, who fought for India's freedom struggle, spent so much time in jail, built the modern India, built the non-aligned movement. Should I apologize for that? My answer is no. My grandmother was Mrs. Gandhi, who did the 1971 war, fought for the poor, nationalized the banks, had a heart in the right place. You think I should apologize for her? My father was a man who brought in the telecom and the computer revolution. Should I apologize for that? No. There's a way to actually argue the case.
To do all of this, you have to own the fact that you're the leader. The problem is that you are not saying I'm the leader.
Yeah.
You're saying I'm a, Jaiprakash Narayan wannabe figure of this time.
Yeah.
I am traveling across India. I am all right. Your political brand has been repaired to some degree by that effort. But you are not in a ruthless political competitive environment willing to compete head on.
Absolutely. And I can tell you that is the mistake that Rahul has made. I did not want anybody to be told that this entire Bharat Jodo Nyaya Yatra is just an ideological or a ground-up campaign for social justice.
Yeah.
You have to
as Sachin said on this podcast, he said, we're not an NGO.
We're not an NGO. You've got to win the election.
Right.
And, for example, the Congress is to realize, we criticize Mr. Modi's government correctly, that they are very illiberal and they have become very communal, etc. But you want to make this country secular, liberal, democratic, you've got to win the election. You can't change it by being in the opposition.
So let's end with the elephant in the room. Why can't there be a Congress without the Gandhi family?
It can
at the helm. I'm not saying throw them out of the party.
Yeah.
Why are they continuing to be the de facto leader? Now, when we were asked this question earlier, we were told by various congressmen and women, the Gandhis are the glue that hold the party together. Clearly, the Gandhis are no longer the glue that hold the party together, given the scale of the exodus. Nobody is staying back because of the Gandhis, right? So, why is it that it's so difficult for someone like you, suspended congressman, Congress supporter, to imagine this party being run by anything or anyone other than the Nehru-Gandhi family? Now, imagine for a moment if in the next election, because it's too late for this one, you went in saying, you know what, this is our disruptive idea. Sachin Pilot is our prime ministerial candidate.
It'll work. It'll work.
Or at least it'll be an attempt at a new idea.
Oh, yeah. I, for example, felt that when for whatever tactical reasons, Arvind Kejriwal and Mamata Banerjee said, make Mr. Kharge
You should have.
You should have just said, yes, let's just do it.
It's better than having no candidate.
Absolutely. Because people come and tell me that we like Rahul, but if Rahul says, I'm not the prime ministerial candidate, we are happier with that. Yeah. So, you got to be somewhere smart enough to know, be part of a winning team. You don't have to be the captain.
Yeah.
I rather be, part of a winning team, even if I'm just in the reserves. And where Barkha India has changed, right? I mean, look at cricket. There's this young kid called Yashasvi Jaiswal hitting double hundreds and centuries galore. Look at their humble backgrounds. You see, what has happened to India is people like Rahul, but they say, you know what, he had it easy.
Yeah.
And, I have always felt that when you have people like Shashi Tharoor, P. Chidambaram, Manish, and there are so many excellent people within the party and all political parties, and they see Rahul and they like him, they're like, he's had it so easy to become a Congress president.
Yeah,
why not these guys? And I think that is where the dynasty argument really goes against the Congress. So I for example had recommended in my articles that Rahul should step back, let somebody else be the Congress president. Frankly, I stand vindicated because Mr. Kharge, at least because he's the president, whatever freedom he has, is given Rahul Gandhi the opportunity to do what he's doing through these yatras.
No, this is true, but nobody in among the voting people believe, therefore, that Mr.
Kharge is in control.
Yeah, or that he's the prime ministerial candidate of the Congress party. The opposition is entering this election without a leader.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I feel Nitish is going, it's easy to call him Paltu Ram today and dismiss him with some kind of a sarcastic or a sardonic joke. But the truth is, had Nitish been here, we could have positioned him as the prime ministerial candidate. Here was a man who'd been chief minister longer than Mr. Modi, somebody who speaks very good Hindi, comfortable in speaking across any part of the Hindi heartland. More important, he would have taken on Mr. Modi because he took on Mr. Modi even earlier. Yeah. So these were opportunities lost. A week is a long time in politics. I still remain an eternal optimist, but I got to admit that if Mr. Modi is successful today, the full credit for that needs to go to the Indian National Congress Party.
That is bluntly said. I don't think your suspension is going to be revoked anytime soon. I'm just kidding. Yeah. Thank you so much, Sanjay Jha. Sanjay Jha's new book, India in Free Fall, is now out. It has very interesting anecdotes and stories. And even if you don't agree with it, do read it. Thank you, Sanjay. It's been
a pleasure. Thank you, Barkha. It's been a pleasure.